As far as haunted dolls go, Peggy looks fairly mundane, with blue eyes and blonde bob. But she might make you sick. Something of an internet sensation, Peggy was owned by British investigator, Jane Harris, of haunted dolls. Peggy has been reported to cause nausea, dizziness, headaches, and perhaps even heart attacks, in those that simply see her photo. Those that encounter her in person, might even go mad. Harris came into possession of Peggy, courtesy the previous owners, who said the doll was causing bad dreams. She'd wake feeling hot and shaken, Harris said. No matter where she moved the doll, the nightmares persisted. She apparently sought the help of a local priest, but 2 visits later, there was no change. And mediums who have visited the doll, have claimed she is inhabited by a spirit persecuted in life, possibly with ties to the Holocaust. Harris and her team came to believe Peggy's spirit is a woman from 1946 London, who died of an illness that ailed her chest, possibly asthma. The woman also apparently hated clowns. Most recently, Peggy was acquired by Zach Baggins, of Ghost Adventures, who is displaying the doll at his haunted museum in Las Vegas. Baggins claimed that a typewriter began typing on its own, during a seance with Peggy. Dana and Greg Newkirk's Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult have an extensive collection of supposedly haunted and creepy objects. Among them is Ruby, the haunted doll, which is a porcelain, paint, and fabric doll from the early 1900s, that originated in southern Ontario. According to the museum's description, Ruby spent decades in attics and basements, as she was passed along by people who wanted nothing to do with her. The Newkirks reported that the previous owners came to believe that Ruby is possessed by a young girl, who died while holding the doll. Ruby is said to be able to move on her own. But what makes her especially interesting, is the feeling of sadness or nausea, that overcomes anyone who holds her. According to contemporary Japanese myth, in 1918, a teen named Ikichi Suzuki bought a large doll from Hokkaido Providence for his younger sister, Okiku. The two became inseparable, and Okiku gave the doll her own name. At about 40 centimeters tall, and draped in a classical kimono, the doll was lovely. Its hair was raven black, and trimmed to roughly shoulder length, in a traditional Okappa hairstyle. Her eyes were penetrating coals, that seemed to consume everything up in their gaze. The doll was mesmerizing and spellbinding, something to take your breath away. A couple of years later, Okiku died. Her family came to believe that Okiku's ghost was occupying the doll. The doll would move around, and its hair was growing. The doll now resides in a special shrine in Manji Temple, in Hokkaido. The priests of the temple regularly cut Okiku's still growing hair. Robert the doll looks almost more simian than human. It has black beady eyes, tiny distressed cuts on his face, a peculiar grin, and wears a little sailor outfit, likely originally worn by his owner, Robert Eugene Otto of Key West, Florida. Robert the doll's story goes back to 1904, when the real Robert, a boy who went by Gene, acquired it from his grandfather, who'd recently returned from a trip to Germany. Robert was a constant companion for Gene, and it was accused of various misdeeds, and mysterious movements by the boy. Toys were mutilated, furnitures overturned, and eerie giggles were heard throughout the Otto home. And Gene always placed the blame on Robert. As he grew older, Gene became an artist, and his inherited home was known as the artist house. There, Robert would be perched in a window on the second floor turret room, where people claimed he changed position. After Gene died in 1974, Myrtle Reuter purchased the home, and Robert came with it. She said the doll would move on its own, giggle, and change expression, should anyone disparage Gene. In 1994, Reuter donated the doll to the Fort East Martello Museum, the gallery of which was designed by Gene. Even before Robert became an attraction, he began attracting visitors who had heard of him. Kept in a glass display case, people claimed to be cursed by him, should they insult him, or take his photo without asking for permission. The doll is also credited for interfering with electronic devices. The doll is thus a bit of a celebrity, receiving about 3 letters a day, that range from apologies for bad behavior toward him, to letters asking for advice. Robert is said to be a fan of sweets as well, and some people send candy. Interestingly, Robert the doll sits with his own doll. A dog with a gaping mouth that resembles the "This is fine" meme. The story of Annabelle became infamous with the release of the Conjuring and Annabelle films. The real Annabelle is a Raggedy Ann doll, while much less sinister in appearance, made quite a name for itself in the 1970s. Annabelle was given as a birthday gift to a nursing student, Donna, by her mother. Donna, and her roommate, Angie, would often return home, to discover that the doll had changed positions, or moved rooms. Sometimes, the doll is standing or kneeling on its own. They'd also find handwritten notes scrawled onto parchment paper, which says, "Help us," or "Help Lou." One night, they discovered blood on the doll's hand and chest. And even, weirdly, a piece of chocolate seemed to appear. The name Annabelle Higgins was introduced by a medium the nurses consulted. The medium claimed Annabelle was the spirit of a 7-year-old girl, who had lived in happier times when the apartments were still fields. The girl only wanted love, said the medium, and requested permission to stay with the women, and to enter the doll, which they granted. In their book, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren indicate that the behavior went on for nearly a year, before they became involved, and ultimately took Annabelle into their care. In late 2020, rumors began to circulate that Annabelle had escaped the Warrens' occult museum, a panic that was eventually assuaged, when the Warrens' son posted a picture of Annabelle safely in her case.